Never thought I'd tell this story out loud, but the truth has a way of clawing its way out eventually. People call me an exwitch, but back then I didn't feel like one. I felt like someone searching for power, for belonging, for something bigger than myself. What I found instead was a darkness that smiled back at me every time I looked into it. And today I'm going to tell you about the 7 foods we used not for nourishment, not for rituals of kindness or healing, but as vessels, doorways, invitations for spirits that had no business stepping into human lives. The first food was honey, sweet, harmless, innocent, at least that's what everyone thinks. But in the circles I moved in, honey was the perfect carrier. Its cling, its natural ability to trap and preserve, made it easy for us to infuse intention into it. When people ate it, their guard dropped, their emotions softened, they became open, suggestible. Most never noticed the sudden shifts in mood, the dreams that followed, the way they woke up feeling like someone else had breathed through their lungs during the night. The second food was salt. Everyone uses salt without thinking, and that's exactly why it was powerful. We didn't use regular salt, though we charged it, whispered over it, mixed it with herbs ground so fine you'd never see them. It slipped into food unnoticed, but its job wasn't possession, it was erosion. It weakened people, subtly, quietly, their confidence first, then their energy, finally their sense of direction. When someone no longer knows where they're going, darkness is always ready to offer a map. The third food was bread. Bread represents life in almost every culture. That made it the perfect trap. We would bake symbols into it, not carved, not obvious, kneaded into the dough like fingerprints pressed into memory. When someone ate it, it wasn't about letting spirits in, it was about binding, tying their lives to cycles they didn't choose, anchoring them to emotions they thought were their own. We used bread to keep people connected to us, even when they believed they'd walked away. The fourth food was fruit. Not all fruit, just the ones that carried fragrance. Apples, peaches, plums, fruits that bruise easily. Spirits the kind we worked with liked weaknesses, cracks, bruises. We'd coat the fruit with oils and perform incantations over them. When someone bit into the fruit, the invitation was sealed. They'd feel it first as nostalgia, then as longing, and finally as obsession. Not obsession with us, but with the voice whispering behind their thoughts. The fifth food was tea. This one was the most dangerous. Tea steam carries intention better than almost anything else. A single cup could alter a person for days. We steeped the leaves with roots that symbolized pathways we opened and directed. When the steam rose, it carried spiritual messages straight through the breath. People would feel calm, peaceful, trusting. They'd open up, and that's when the attachments formed, soft and silent, like silk threads. The sixth food was meat. Not for everyone, only for those we targeted deeply. Meat holds energy differently from plants. It absorbs and it remembers. Before preparing it, we'd perform rites to bind a spirit to the flesh, once cooked, once eaten. It was inside them, not fully, not in control, but present, watching, waiting, influencing urges, instincts, impulses. The kind of influence people mistake for their own thoughts, that was the point. It needed to blend in. And then there was the seventh food, the most effective, the most invisible. Water. People assume water is pure, neutral, safe, but water is the easiest thing in the world to manipulate. It listens, it responds to sound, vibration, intention. We'd speak into it, chant into it, hold it under moonlight until it felt alive. When someone drank that water, it didn't hit them all at once. It slipped into the body quietly, flowing into every cell, carrying exactly what we placed in it. Fear, dependence, confusion, or sometimes a spirit searching for a new home. I wish I could say that everyone who ate those foods felt something immediately. They didn't, and that's what made it all so terrifying. Most people never knew they'd opened a door inside themselves. They simply changed slowly, subtly. Personality shifts, random anxiety, thoughts that didn't belong to them, a sense that someone was standing behind them when no one was there. Leaving that world wasn't easy. It cost me friendships, days of my life I can't remember, and nights filled with things I still can't explain. But I left, and I'm telling this story so no one walks blindly into the same darkness I once welcomed with open arms. Not every sweet thing is harmless, not every warm meal is comfort, and not every hunger comes from inside you. Some hungers are placed there. That's the truth I learned the hard way, and now it's yours. I didn't realize how deep I had gone until the night everything finally cracked open. People imagine that those who fall into dark practices do it suddenly, with dramatic rituals and lightning in the sky. But the truth is quieter. It begins with curiosity, with a question, with a desire to feel special in a world that treats you like background noise. That desire is slow and sticky, and it clings to you until one day you don't recognize the shape of your own shadow. I remember sitting alone in a dim kitchen, the smell of burned herbs in the air, and asking myself why I felt like a stranger in my own skin. The answer didn't come in words. It came in a heaviness, a pressure in the room, as if something was standing behind me, watching me breathe. And I knew I had invited this, not once, not twice, but so many times that I no longer remembered which door I had opened first. People think the foods we worked with had power on their own. They didn't. The power came from intention, twisted, hungry intention. When we used honey, it wasn't just sweetness we were infusing, it was desire. We wanted people to crave what we placed in their lives. Honey became a mirror of longing, and whoever consumed it started to feel hollow when they didn't have us around. I saw families fall apart over that simple glaze on toast. I saw couples turn cold and clingy within days. I watched a teenage girl stop sleeping because she swore she heard someone whispering her name whenever she closed her eyes. Her mother kept giving her spoonfuls of the honey we had blessed, believing it would make her calm. It only made the whispers louder. That memory still scratches at me sometimes, appearing in my dreams, replaying behind the darkness of my eyelids like a broken film reel. Salt was worse because it was everywhere. You can avoid honey, you cannot avoid salt, and once we tampered with it, it was no longer just a seasoning, it became a slow poison of the spirit. I watched people crumble under the weight of decisions they'd once made with confidence. They doubted their skills, their relationships, their choices. The salt took their backbone first, then their clarity, until finally they became shells moving through routines they no longer enjoyed. We didn't need to break them loudly. The salt did it quietly, grain by grain, until the person they used to be was buried beneath confusion and lethargy. No one suspects salt. No one questions it. That was what made it perfect. Bread was our anchor, the thing we used for bindings and attachments. I remember kneading dough with hands that shook from exhaustion because the ritual demanded precision. If you pressed too hard, the energy broke. Too soft, and the symbol never formed. When the bread rose, so did the tether, a silent rope connecting us to the person who ate it. Not enough to control them, just enough to influence them. I could walk into a room and feel the presence of someone who had eaten our bread, even if I hadn't seen them in months. It was like an echo of their heartbeat pressed against my ribs. Sometimes I'd feel sudden sadness, sudden anger, sudden fear, and I'd realize it wasn't mine. It was theirs, bleeding through the connection. Imagine living every day with the emotions of strangers slipping into your mind without warning. Imagine feeling their nightmares tremble at the edge of your sleep. That's what bread did. It bound us in ways none of us fully understood. The fruits were deceptive in a gentler way, almost beautiful if you didn't know better. Ripened apples with a shine so perfect they looked painted, plums glowing in deep purples, peaches soft as breath. People saw beauty. They didn't see the oils we rubbed into the skin, oils carrying whispered invocations that seeped through the flesh. When someone bit into one, the first thing that hit them was sweetness. The second was memory, but not their own. Suddenly they'd long for a place they'd never been, miss people they'd never met, or feel heartbreak for events that never happened to them. Spirits used emotions as doorways. The fruits opened those emotional wounds just wide enough for the spirits to slip in, quiet as fog. Most of the time, the person affected would spend days wandering around with a heavy chest, unable to explain why they felt so disconnected from reality. They just knew something in them had been touched. Tea was delicate and dangerous. When we prepared it, the steam swirling from the pot felt like breath from another world. I used to watch the vapors twist and curl, carrying the intentions we planted inside the leaves. People trusted tea. It was comfort. It was warmth. It was something you drank when you needed to feel safe, and that was exactly why it worked so well. A single cup could open someone's spirit just wide enough for attachments to form. I remember sitting across from a woman who drank the tea we prepared. As she lifted the cup, she exhaled softly, her shoulders relaxing, her eyes softening. She didn't know that with every sip, a thread was weaving itself around her thoughts. Days later she called us, saying she felt closer to us, drawn to us, dependent on our presence. She didn't know it wasn't us she was drawn to, it was the thing whispering through the doorway the tea had opened. Meat was the heaviest, the darkest, and the most irreversible of all. Only the strongest rites involved meat, because binding a spirit to something once living required a ritual that drained even the most skilled among us. I hated those nights, the candles flickering violently, the air thick with the smell of iron, the way shadows seemed to move even when nothing else did. Once the spirit attached to the flesh, there was no turning back. Anyone who consumed it carried that presence inside them, not controlling them, not speaking, just watching, guiding impulses, shifting instincts. It could take months before a person realized their personality had changed. A quiet person becoming irritable, a gentle person snapping at loved ones, someone deeply religious suddenly losing all interest in prayer. The change was never loud. It was slow, creeping, disguised as human nature. But the water still haunts me. People forget that water remembers. It carries vibrations longer than any other element. We would speak into it in complete darkness, our words sinking into the liquid like stones sinking into a lake. When the moonlight touched that water, it activated everything buried inside. I watched people drink it and feel nothing at all, and then days later their moods shifted, their energy drained, their emotions tangled into knots they couldn't untie. They'd say things like, "I don't feel like myself," or "I feel like something is following me." The water didn't attack, it simply allowed confusion to settle, allowed fear to bloom, allowed the spirits to drift closer. It wasn't possession, it was invitation. Leaving all of this behind didn't happen in a moment of courage, but in a moment of terror. I woke up one night with my chest so heavy I couldn't breathe. I felt hands on me, not human hands, but pressure like someone leaning over me, studying me, deciding something about me. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't even think straight. All I could do was feel the presence, thick and cold, hovering inches above my skin. And in that moment I realized every door I had opened for others had also been opened inside me. I wasn't just dealing with spirits anymore. I was hosting them, and they weren't just visiting, they were settling. That night broke me in a way that still hasn't fully healed. My heart didn't slow down for hours. My limbs shook long after the pressure lifted, and when morning came, the sunlight felt foreign, like it was shining on someone I used to be. I walked away from everything that day, the rituals, the gatherings, the foods, the whispers, the promises of power. I walked away from them all because I finally understood the truth. Nothing we invited into others ever truly stayed contained. It always found a way back to us. Now, when I talk about those 7 foods, people think I'm trying to scare them. I'm not. I'm telling the truth the only way I know how, through the memories that still sit heavy in my bones. I've seen how quickly innocence becomes vulnerability. I've seen how easily something unseen can slip into a life and rearrange it. And I've learned, painfully, that not every hunger is your own. Not every thought comes from inside you. Not every craving is natural. Some cravings are planted. Some thoughts are whispered. Some hungers are the result of doors we never meant to open. And once something crosses into you, once it finds space inside your mind, your heart, your spirit, it doesn't leave without taking something with it. That is the part no one tells you. That is the part I will never forget.